right in the middle of the ghetto on the curb with a spike. All of the bookish, we on our back staring at the stars above.
We are back in the SpeakUp podcast studio. We have a couple very special guests in the building. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I'm going to take forever. I know them too much. So we'll start with Dorothy. Go ahead, and we'll go clockwise around the room.
Clockwise. Hey, y'all. My name is Dorothy, Masterpiece, founder of Ada Arts, all that gym jazz.
You said nothing. All right, Candace.
Wow. Okay. My name is Candace Harrinarine. Okay. So what I do is I work for a university over their victim services. And so any student who identifies as a victim, I work with them. I'm originally from Trinidad, so I'm a Caribbean girl.
Wrong. I think that's
the wrong one.
Absolutely. That was totally Jamaica.
What do y'all do?
We don't do anything.
Oh.
We have more like a sing-sing voice. So
sing.
It's very sing-sing.
Okay.
When my family call me, they be like, Candace, where you going?
That is true.
Where you going? Yeah, very sing-sing. Born in Trinidad, grew up in the South Florida area. Went to FAU, I'm an alum, and then went to LSU. So go Tigers. And then I came back, worked for victim services, and been doing that.
You went to LSU?
Yeah,
I feel like I knew that, but I didn't really put it together.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Wait, when did you go to FAU?
20. Oh, boy, I'm much from Asia.
Oh, so you just transferred?
No, I graduated from FAU, got my master's at LSU. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. When your parents get older, at one point you got to make the decision. Because I was going to go back to another university. I was going to move. I was thinking about moving a little bit north, but things change.
True. It's very weird. We talk to people every day, and maybe it's just me, but we never really get on that deeper level. Yeah, so me connecting the dots with you is, it goes to show you how much we really
know of each
communicate.
other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I still love you.
I still love you too,
I still love you. I still love you.
I love you too, Dorothy. You're not
well.
I was waiting for mine, but
you're what?
My love.
Oh my God.
This
isn't about you. It's about Candace.
This is true.
Anyway, so Candace.
What's up?
So a little bit about your job. You are a victim advocate, right?
Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean?
So that means if somebody was to experience some form of trauma, some sort of victimization, so we're talking about, it could be theft, right? It could be voyeurism. It could be sexual assault, stalking, rape, domestic violence. At that point, that person is, the victim of the situation, right? And so I work with them, get them resources, get them to, if they want to file a report, kind of get them back on their feet if they're in that place to get back on their feet. And if they're not, I just kind of provide options for them. And whenever they're ready, then we go back to that place. A lot of people, depending on where they are in the victim aspect, they're not ready. And so I don't push nothing on nobody. I just kind of make sure
important.
They know, what their options are. They know my door is an open door policy. And so when they're ready, I'll be there.
And are you busy?
Unfortunately.
I could imagine. That's a lot of students.
Yeah, it's hard.
Is it just you, or is your department kind of big? What is it?
Nope. Within my department, it's just me, unfortunately.
That's crazy.
So I'm busy. Tomorrow I'll be in Jupiter.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Next week I'll
you do all campuses?
Yep.
What? I didn't know that.
Man, that gets deep.
Yeah. So you go to Davie? Well, Davie too?
I'll be in Davie next week as well.
Whoa.
Yeah, so a lot of traveling. A lot of times I'm not in the office. And so it's hard because when a student comes to the door, what a lot of people don't realize, the amount of effort, courage, energy it takes them to walk towards me. And then the door's locked because I'm in another campus or something.
Right.
It's hard, yeah. And so I try to make sure there's always somebody at the office in some capacity to greet the person, get their information. My cards are everywhere. My business information's everywhere. So if they want to connect, I'll be there to connect with them.
You'll be there for them.
Yeah.
Man, that's got to be a lot of emotional stress on you.
Yeah.
Because that's your job every day.
It has its moments. I think, I was talking to somebody earlier today about that. I was it depends on the person. So you have to have the ability to separate yourself. And if you cannot, you'll struggle because you'll take work home with you every single day.
Yeah.
And so I had some really great examples in my life who kind of forced me to be this person that, when I leave, I leave.
Right.
So I do everything in my capacity. But as soon as I leave, I got stuff to do. I got my own business to run. I got my church responsibilities. I got a family. I got 2 parents who are not getting any younger that I take care of. And so I got to go. I don't have time to sit there. I do what I can, and I go extra over beyond. But by the time I leave, I leave. Like I had, when I was in grad school, I had an assistantship where I oversaw a residential hall. And so one of my direct supervisors, I'll never forget, because you know in housing you live where you work. Yeah. So a lot of the times, like after 5, they're still calling you. Well, my supervisor looked at me and he said, yeah, after 5, if you need something, call up. I'm not available unless I'm on call. And it was one of those hardest things, but I was like 21 at the time, and I was like, okay, so I won't call. I'll call up. And then I started realizing, like, the next year, like, I need to separate myself. And then when I had came back home, I was dating somebody at the time, and he was very much like, yeah, when you're off of work, we don't need to talk about this. Right. So he even forced me. So it was like these two people who were just basically saying, like, after 5, you need to let it go because we're not about to talk about this. And it was good. It was hard, but it was a good learning opportunity. And now when I get off of 5, like, I don't check my emails. I'm not doing those things.
Yeah, but is it still, like, hard? Well, I mean, you've been doing it for a number of years now, but I would imagine, especially in the beginning, it's hard to even just, like, let it go. Because I'm sure you hear some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it all at this point.
All?
I've heard some stuff where you'll be like, this can't be. No, it really did happen. No, not even, I mean, in the beginning it wasn't. Like, there was probably one case out of the whole semester I took home with me. Beyond that, I didn't take it home with me. I was, like, I always had something going on after work. So I had to pick up and leave and not worry about that. It's also, like, I selfishly engage in self-care, and a lot of people don't. But, like, you need to engage in self-care and have a self-care plan. No matter what you're doing in this world, right. Like, you need to have a plan. And so, like, I spoil myself. So if today I need to go to the movies, I go to the movies. If today I need to have a drink, I need to have that drink. If I need to do something, I need to do it. And I don't care what anybody says. For me to be what I need to be tomorrow at my job, I'm going to do that. Right. And so I do that. Like, I really do. Like, I'm very big on every Sunday I have to go to church. I'm very big on that. Like, if it's happy hour that day and I know I need to go to happy hour, I really do just go to happy hour. Go. Right. And, like, I don't need nobody to come with me. I just go by myself. I sit by the bar and I do my thing. And you know, some people need that extra person. Like, no, like, if I need to do what I need to do, you do it.
Get it out. There it is. So with your job, right? I mean, we already went through, like, how you heard it all, you've seen it all. What is, like, the biggest way to prevent these things from kind of escalating, if it is a biggest way?
Escalating?
Like, yeah, getting to that next step where it's like, okay, pretty much in every situation you made this right when you should have made a left. And all situations aren't the same.
No, for sure. I agree. I think sometimes, you know what it is, like, being in community is important. And sometimes in these situations, the person isn't in a community, like a proper community. So, like, let's say you're dating somebody and that person who's the aggressor is isolating you. You're no longer with your friends, your family. You know, at this point, you're all by yourself. So the community that you did have is no longer there. So at that point, you're not realizing the depth of what's happening. It's the thing about it is when you're in muddy water, no matter what it is, you're in muddy water. So you can't see what's wrong from right, and you don't know what's wrong from right. Until you step out and look above 20,000 feet view and you're looking down, you're realizing the mud isn't that deep. It just feels that deep. And there's ways that you can navigate out of that. You just can't see that, and that's where the community comes in. There's that friend, that's confidant, that mom, that whoever who you could rely on to be like, hey, listen, this is not, you know, great. How do we help you, right? And it's also sometimes whoever's in the situation, they probably don't even think that they're the victim. They don't probably think that the person is manipulating them or, you know, causing them to have all this anxiety. They think like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm using heteronormative examples, but like, oh my gosh, he really loves me.
Wait a second. What is heteronormative?
Like a guy and girl example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like there's other types of relationships, but they're thinking like, oh, he must love me. That's why he's doing this. When the reality is that maybe this isn't love. Maybe he's doing this out of insecurities because he was cheated on before. And in return, he's using that to have this power and control over you, which is unhealthy. But again, if it's so simple and so little, it's not seen as an issue. It's like, oh, well, he just loves me, so it's okay. And so having those people who you're vulnerable with outside of the relationship kind of helps you to call you out on like, hey, girl, this ain't right. Let's work this through, right? So I think that would be really helpful for a lot of people. But then it's also like you have to know you. Because, you know, Dorothy came and told me, hey, Candace, I don't think this is good. Well, if I don't want to hear it, I'm not going to hear it.
Right.
So you have to also know, like, when you're ready to receive that kind of information. Because if I'm not, she could say it as many times as she wants. I'm still going to go back to him at the end of the night. And you could keep saying what you want to say. And then if I keep doing that, Dorothy's no longer going to be there for me. And so I think for whoever that friend is or that person or that confidant, they have to be patient. You know, they talk about domestic violence victims will leave their partner and come back 7 to 8 times before they finally leave. Well, for many people, they're not willing to wait with that victim 7 to 8 times. They're gone by the second time. And so you have to be patient as that friend and just know that they're going to probably do this to you a couple times, lie to your face. But at the end of the day, if you really want to be that confidant, just wait. Be patient. They'll come to you when they're ready.
So why do you think it takes that 7 or 8 times? Is it just like it just gets that bad after the 7, 8 times, or they just get tired, or what do you think it is?
No, I think it's a realization. Like, I think, you know, you go through a period where, I think about any of your relationships, right? Like, you meet somebody and it's great, right? You're in this honeymoon phase. It's so amazing. And then something happens and it's no longer amazing. And so then at that point, you're going through the rut with the person, but you're holding on to those good times.
Right.
And you're thinking that person will go back to these good times, not realizing the person is finally showing who they really are. So then what happens is then in any relationship, there starts to be these overlapping parts, right? So, you know, they might be sharing a phone bill. Or we might move in together, right? Or abuse takes many different forms. So it doesn't have to be just sexual or physical. It could be psychological. It could be financial. And so when all these different layers happen, then you're solely dependent on your aggressor. How do you walk out the door? How do you leave that relationship? Because there's so many overlaps. You'd have to literally break apart all these overlaps. And we might be talking about 4 or 5 things. Well, if I'm a victim and I've been through so much, I don't have my family no more. You pay most of my bills. The car outside is yours, so I can't just drive away, right? You know, all these different things. You're like, well, I can't leave now. I'm stuck. What if there's kids involved?
Right.
How do you leave at that point? And so sometimes it's just, you know, being patient. And sometimes for them, like, they'll leave, they'll come back, things will happen, and they're like, okay, but I'm still holding on to that honeymoon phase because the honeymoon phase meant so much to me, right? And what if you're with somebody for 10 years? And now we're focused on the time that we've had with that person for 10 years. Even though it's changed, that person's no longer the first person you met. 10 years. Like, I'm going to give up this relationship that I've devoted 10 years for? Yeah. Then you start thinking about the time. And so there's so many factors. You like when it comes to stuff like this, you can't just put it in a box. There's so much aspects behind it. And so working with somebody, you just have to be patient. Listen.
Oh, sure. Listen
and just know that they're going to say something and do the next thing. They're going to tell you, I'm going to do all of this today, and then tomorrow they're going to be so mad at the world, but they're not going to want to talk to you. And they're just going through the cycle. And they're going to keep going through that cycle until they're ready to take that next step. And when they're ready, then you're just there for them.
You just got to be patient. Mm-hmm. Definitely be patient. So with you going through this and understanding like the other side of it, right? How has it affected your relationships and how you attack your relationships?
Wow, this is a good question. Oh my God. Wow, no, that's a really good question. I think it's really impacted my relationships. I'm not gonna lie.
You think positively or negatively?
I think negatively.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot. I've worked with so many people that my trust towards people, it's harder for me.
That's what I was thinking.
And it's crazy because, like, you know, like you could know somebody for so long and all of a sudden they change the game up on you and you're like, damn, like when did this happen? And it scares me because to be vulnerable and then something could happen, it's a lot, right? It's also like, you know, like I'm from a Caribbean household, and so physical abuse is so huge. And that's one thing, like, I just don't have the tolerance for. Like, it's literally, I don't have the tolerance. I don't want to go through it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm very adamant, like, anybody puts their hands on me, like, I'm out, like, next door. But then I have to go through the healing process of somebody putting their hands on me. And I have to trust and be vulnerable with somebody to talk about what my fears are and my things that I can't handle, because I won't be able to do well with that. And so it's been hard. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. Like, if I first meet you, I'm like, hey, I just want to get to know you. And then you hit me with the big, long talk.
Well, no, we wouldn't do all that in the first. We won't do that.
I'm saying even getting to know you, like, after, you know, a couple months, you just hit me with the long talk. Because I would imagine for you, when you attack a situation, it's not just your mindset. It's all the things that you've seen, you've heard about, you've imagined going through you in that one moment. So that's a lot.
Well, yeah, because like people don't talk about, like, there's primary trauma, so something happened to you, but there's secondary trauma where things didn't directly happen to you, but you're experiencing those emotions, right? And so there's a level, like, and I think that's why I engage in self-care. That's why I engage in taking care of myself, because, like, that could take a toll on me, right? And so there's just some stuff, like, I'm very, like, careful about. And then I've always had a really huge spirit of discernment. And so I make sure that that discernment really leads me in those moments. So I know, okay, this might be not okay. This person, something's a bad vibe that I'm getting from it. And I let that kind of guide me sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's been difficult. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've made new friends. I've dated. I've done a lot of things at this point. So it hasn't completely deterred me, but it has been difficult. Not gonna lie.
I would imagine.
Not gonna lie.
And you're still going for it.
Listen, I'm young, and I want to be a wife and a mom one day. I really want to be a mom, so I can't let that deter me too much.
No, for sure. You still want to go out, and because you have to be vulnerable at some point.
Absolutely.
At some point, for sure. So I don't know if you ever heard of the whole situation with Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah.
You have. So I'm going to explain a little bit of what I understand about it. And if I make a mistake, definitely let me know. Mm-hmm. All right. So he and his trainer were, had a relationship, I guess a work relationship. And I guess he took it too far at various levels. Mm-hmm. So I guess the first time he like grabbed her butt or something like that. And then like the second time he kissed her. And this is what I'm hearing. This is secondhand information. Mm-hmm. And then like the third time or something, like, he like masturbated or something, and then he came on her or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. From my understanding, I'm like, why would she stay in that situation? Why would she continue to put up with something like that? What is your take on it?
So I think that's kind of like how we're framing our stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, we're stating, well, why did she stay, right? Well, the reality is, why are we talking about him? Why did he do that? Because when we start focusing on the victim, we're victim blaming. Well, why did you stay? Why did you do certain things? But she didn't do anything wrong. He did. He's engaging in these behaviors. And so the reality is we should be asking him, why are you doing this? And I think we also need to be careful with our questions sometimes. Like, we're saying why, it's very accusatory. And the thing is, though, it's that the reality is that he should not be doing that. He like sometimes we need to teach those aggressors that you should not be touching somebody's butt. You should not just be jacking off in front of them. You should not be doing these things if somebody doesn't consent and agreeing to engaging with you. Because the reality is like, sex is meant to be pleasurable. Anything sexual is meant to be very pleasurable. It doesn't become pleasurable when somebody does it because they want to without an agreeing with somebody else. That's when things get messy. And so I don't think, her reasons for staying is whatever her reasons are. You know what I mean? It could be like, and it's also how the brain, processes information. She could have been scared to leave. She could have been in such shock that, like when a car is coming your way, when people are like, why didn't you run? Your body's in shock. Yeah. You can't run in that moment. She could have been in shock. She could have been a lot of different things, right? And we don't know the depth of it, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, we got to teach people, whoever these aggressors are, like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that.
I understand, but is there a line, though, of where somebody should take ownership for their own behavior, or no?
Yeah, but that's how we get into victim blaming, right? The victim's never at fault. Like no matter what you think, no matter what you may believe, the reality is that they're not at fault. Because yes, they could have left. Yes, they could have changed their clothing. Yes, that they could have said stop. Yes, they could have done a lot of different things. But the reality is as a person, you should not put somebody in that position. And that's just what it is. Bottom line. You shouldn't
put somebody in that position.
No, you shouldn't put somebody in a position.
So, scenario, right?
Go for it.
It's two women, right? They're hanging out. This is like their first date or something like that. And one of the women, they start kissing on the other woman and just starts to escalate. And then they, I guess, have sex. Okay. And then after, the other woman is saying, oh, I didn't want to have sex, and you kind of intimidated me, and that's pretty much rape, right?
Right. So again, so these kind of cases are so complex, which is why they don't go a lot through the court system. It's so complex that they're so underreported, right? Because if it's between two parties, you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt because there's no evidence or third party person to assist in explaining what happened. And so I think, there's many different factors that could take place, like where is there alcohol involved? Was there certain things that felt like it was a manipulation? It could have been like afterwards a person had never been with a woman before and was uncomfortable and didn't want anybody else to know. So then they became, there's so many different things that could take place. Yeah. And so I would never say, is that rape? I don't know. Like, if there was other factors involved, maybe. But, it could be rape. It could not be rape. It just depends on.
But for you, if she came to you, how would you handle the situation?
Yeah. So I would never not validate somebody's opinion. So if they're telling me that this is what they feel and this is what takes place, that's great. I understand. Let me get you to the proper resources and accommodations. Let me explain to you some of these processes, because if you want to move forward with the process, I'll explain to you what that looks like. And if you want to move forward, then I'll assist you in getting you to certain people who could aid you in that process. And so I always provide the options. It's not my decision to tell you what's right from wrong. It's not my decision to be the judge or jury. My decision is, hey, my whole role is this, because whatever happened, how you're feeling, it's going to impact the next year, 2 years, 3 years, rest of your life. So let's make sure you have the proper support system surrounding you as you move forward.
So your job is to provide that support system, not to, like you said, this was right, this was wrong.
Yeah. Plus, at the end of the day, like, that's not my place. Like, a lot of times we want to judge what should be. That's never our places. Like, end of the day, when people make decisions, we can advise them, say, I think this would be great. And then we need to respect what people do. And if we can't respect it, that's when there's conflicts happen. And I'm not here to do that. Listen, you do what you think is best. I'll tell you if I agree or don't agree. And if you want to, go for it.
Right.
At the end of the day, like, I will never close my door from anybody. So Candace as a person will always be there, even when somebody falls. Even when I told you that's going to mess you up, I'm still going to be there, because end of the day, you don't know how many doors are closed around somebody. At the end of the day, I think kindness goes a long way. I think agape love goes a long way, and I believe in both. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to be there.
What's agape love?
Agape love is beyond unconditional love. So God himself shows agape love towards his children, because he loves beyond everything. And it's such a deeper form of love. It's so much deeper, because because unconditional love is like, I'm going to love you no matter what. But when you talk about agape love, it's like, it's a level of care and empathy and just being there for that person to the depth of, they could slam the door at you 10 times and you're just going to stay there, right? And forgive and forgive and forgive. And sometimes that does take a toll, but
yeah, that sounds crazy.
It does, but I think at the end of the day, like, for me, like, I strive every day to be Christ-like, and so I think sometimes it's just being kind and showing that love to people. Like, you can ask Dorothy. Dorothy would never say that she ever felt shunned by me, even when Dorothy would do whatever, right? And she was scared to talk to me. When the moment came and she talked to me, I showed all the love in the world in our conversation. Even though she was scared, I was like, girl, that's crazy. Why would you be scared to talk to me? Because end of the day, I don't want anybody to go through something and feel like they had nobody to go to.
Right.
And the reality is sometimes people really don't have nobody to go to.
So who's the person that you go to?
Oh, that's so great. That's a good question. I
go to God first and foremost. He's my savior.
Yeah.
I was asking Candace.
I know, but that's what she was going to say. But now that we got that out of the way.
I think I'm still trying to find that person. Like, I had somebody in my life for a little bit, and then now there really isn't that steady person. And so right now it's nobody. That's okay. I think God will bring whoever that is to me when that time comes.
For sure.
But yeah, right now nobody. It's okay. Maybe they might show up after this podcast. Who knows?
There it is.
Right.
You're going to speak into existence.
Speak into existence.
They come into you right now.
In the name.
Oh, Lord. Well, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, Jesse, we were talking prior to this podcast, and you were talking about, and if you don't mind me saying this.
I mind. Don't say that. No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
But you were talking about self-confidence and just, that aspect. And so I guess because It's so crazy. So when I was at LSU, I did so much research about the Black man, and we were trying to come up with these programs and these particular initiatives for the Black man because their attention rates aren't so great at university. The environment that they probably grew up in. We're trying to help them grow to be the man, right? So there's a lot of insecurities they might be facing, a lot of things that they don't know how to navigate because they could be a first-generation student, and back in Louisiana, it's a strong PWI, and so we're dealing with these these white people, for lack of a better word, and so helping them navigate this world, right? And so I guess for me, it's, asking you, like, how, what are those factors that really took place into you not believing in Jesse, right? Because, the Jesse that I've met and known, and I really do admire Jesse. I think you've grown tremendously in those years that I've seen you grown. And so for you to say that, it was like even through all that, you still have those insecurities. Even through all that, you're having these moments. And so talk to me through those aspects.
Well, I feel like first, as growing up as a Black man, or as a Black boy growing into a man, you feel as though everybody has everything together and that you need to have it together. And one thing that I had to realize is that nobody has it together and everybody's trying to figure it out. Right. When I realized that and really truly understood that, like even from the top to the top, they still are trying to figure it out. It gave me a little bit more, it made me feel more comfortable with me not knowing every single move I wanted to make. So that in itself gave me a little bit of confidence. And then just being exposed to Black men who are doing what I want to do, who do have that family, who do have that confidence, who might have everything not together, but they're still trying to make it good. They're trying to do better. They're trying to get to the next level. Those two things definitely instilled in me that confidence and just going outside of my comfort zone. I don't even know how to explain it. Just keep going when you don't know your next step.
Yeah,
just
so
power through it.
Okay, so let me ask you. So do you think do you think being at a university assisted you in finding those mentors and assisted you realizing these things, or do you think you could have found that out without going to a university?
No, I grew up really, really poor. Nobody around me was being successful. Nobody around me had the mindset to go anywhere. So if I were to stay where I was, I probably wouldn't be close to, I would probably be a fraction of what I'm doing now, right? So I definitely had to remove myself from that situation and grow and start over somewhere else. And being in college gave me that opportunity. Yeah. Nobody knew who I was. So, I became who I wanted to become.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, let me ask you a question. So now that you become Jesse.
I'm still becoming Jesse, but I understand what you mean.
Well, I think we're all ever evolving, but do you think you'll go back home or go back to those communities and give them what they can't receive because, they probably don't have access to university or aren't privileged to those same things? Because when you get a college education, you're pretty privileged when it comes to education at that point. And so the people who aren't, would you go back and provide that, or is something that it's like, how do I navigate that?
So first, I think I'm providing that just achieving my goals.
Yeah.
Just being that person that somebody else can be exposed to.
Yeah.
Who's trying to figure it out, but at the same time, figuring it out. That alone is going to give back to my community. I think a lot of times we try to save people from drowning when we don't have a boat ourselves. So we just it's just like this cycle of I'm trying to help you out, but I don't have it figured out. So I'm kind of drowning too, trying to save you. You know what I mean? So first I really have to establish myself and build my boat, and then go back. But at the same time, don't try to save everybody because you can't be everything to everybody. So really understand the impact that you can make. Go from there. So, I am going to go back to my community and help, but not in the same way that I thought I was when I first started. What I mean by that is like going off to college and gaining that mindset of becoming successful. Yeah, we just can't try to save everybody. Definitely learned that.
No, I like the boat metaphor. That was golden. Oh my God, I was definitely snapping if you guys couldn't hear that. That was golden. No, because that's so golden. But I think that's the hard part, right? So like I'm a first generation college student.
Yep, it's hard.
And my parents, like, you know, when my parents came to this country, like my dad was, so he started his whole life over at 47 years old, literally. And, I mean, that's why I admire my dad so much and for who he is. Like, I mean, you guys saw him on Sunday. And he started over at 47. He had 2 little kids, literally. We were 3 or 2 at the time. And he came here with, you know, literally 2 suitcases and whatever money he had in his pocket. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And we started from nothing, literally nothing. And I remember, like, by the time, you know, my brother and I were in middle school, my parents never checked grades at that point. Like, I recently, they never checked grades. And I was 13 years old when I first got a job. So by the time I was 16, I was like, well, what do I need a high school diploma for? I mean, I'm already working at 13. I'm so serious.
I'm grown.
Like, and that was the young, naive Candace. And so, you know, I thank God my dad was kind of, you know, you gonna get this high school diploma, Candace. So I got the high school diploma, and then I come to college. And I kid you not, I came to college, came to orientation, and they were like, you should have registered for classes by now. And I'm like, well, I didn't know anything about this. And so I just signed up for what sounded good, hoping that I'll figure this out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm thankful because I made so much mistakes, but my brother didn't. And so because he didn't, he graduated from high school with almost 60 credits of college credits. Wow. Because he didn't do what Candace did. So he and I both graduated from FAU on the same day. Took me 4 years, took him 2 years, right? Because he literally didn't do what I did. And so I was navigating something that he was just like, nope. And then he was in better communities than I was. He was around people who were literally investing in him, telling him, no, don't do that. You need to go to this school, right? So, like, he went to a charter school and middle school. I went to this hood middle school where everybody was getting fights. I mean, it was just, I mean, I was in, like, those portables because they didn't have those classrooms for us. So he didn't have to be exposed to what I was exposed to because we were getting him where he needed to go. And so it's so hard. By the time I got into college, it was just, okay, I got to do this. I got to do that, right? By the time I was about to graduate, I was like, I got to go to grad school, right? Because I'm trying to figure out what it is that makes sense. And so it's not easy. And my parents, even till this day, you know, they can't advise me on anything. They're just kind of like, well, Candace, you know what you need to do.
Right.
Literally, that's how
what they say.
That's how the conversation goes. And so it's not easy being first gen in any aspect of your life.
For me, it's so weird. No knock to my family, but I graduated, and my first job, I'm the bottom of the bottom. I'm making more money than everybody I know. And it's not a lot of money. I'm not saying like I'm balling or anything like that.
No, but that's real life. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's just such a different experience being I graduated when I was like 23 and making more money than all my aunts, my uncles. And I'm looking around like, what, I'm supposed to save you guys now? Like, you know what I mean? It's so weird.
But the thing is also, like, my dad, he's filled out probably 2 applications out of his whole life, 2 job applications, right? My mom filled out 3, all of which I assisted with in all behalf. I'm so serious, right?
Yeah, first generation.
Like they don't know how to navigate a computer till this day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, you know, when we got my brother makes more money than all of us. More money than my dad has ever seen before in his life. But then here's the thing, though. We're making more money than they ever did. I can't go to them to seek advice on how to financially manage this money. So I got to go find other people to talk to me about how to financially properly save, how to financially get out of debt, how to financially do these things. And so it's you have to create your, I went from one community to another community. Like, I had mentors from different age brackets. I have the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, the 50-year-olds as mentors because I'm going to be them one day.
Right.
And I'm going to go through some of these things that they're going through. So let me start preparing that phase of my life, right? I can't just be staying forward in my 20s, not thinking I'm going to be 30 anytime soon. Like, I'm going to be 30, y'all. And I got to be prepared for that.
It don't happen.
30 age bracket, right? And a lot of times we focus so much on the now or the end of the year that we're not focused 10, 15, 20 years from now. And we got to have those 10, 15, 20-year-old life plans.
Yeah. Well, we were really never taught to think in decades.
No.
That's such a weird concept that I had to figure out. It's not about tomorrow. It's not even about this year. It's about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what are you going to do? Because it all really stems from what you do today. It's all connected. Yeah. So that was definitely something. That's kind of like a poor mindset when you think like paycheck to paycheck. Right. That's what you do when you're poor, hand to mouth, right? But when you have a little bit of excess, when you're trying to make that generational wealth for your kids, not just your kids, but your kids, you have to think in decades. Yep. Decades, not years. So that's definitely something I had to realize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not. I was talking to a friend. He was talking about one of our close friends, and he was just like, I don't understand why this person's still struggling. And I was like, we can't help this person right now because they have a broke mindset. And you can't help somebody with a broke mindset because you're not trying to understand more because they don't want to understand more. They think this is what you need to do. But, like, sometimes I just look at people who are making more money and making, a lot of more money. I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what were their avenues? What were they doing? What were those changes that they did? And I've learned a lot in the last, couple months, years, of those things that I got to, like, get my life together.
What's some things you learned?
They had discipline.
Right.
And a lot of focus. So they didn't allow, one rejection get them down. I also think that our generation struggles with rejection. Yeah. So I think because, sometimes when we're doing stuff, I'll probably get a couple no's. But the no doesn't mean it's not meant for you. The no just means that you got to keep pushing forward.
Right.
And then I think,
all you need is one yes.
Yeah. All you need is
I heard out of 10 trials, you always get one yes.
But that means you have to hear no 9 times.
Exactly.
And that 9 times could get overwhelming.
It hurt, especially when you have bills, when you have people around you thriving, going on trips. Like, you're like, what am I doing wrong? You're getting kind of like a depression. You're like, I'm not doing what I need to do. But you just need that one yes.
But I think that's also, we're living in a generation where people around us, they're always brunching on a Sunday. And they're taking all these trips, and you're like, how are you able to do that? And I'm here just trying to make my ends meet, right? And so, I just got to a place where, like, I'm not comparing myself to nobody else. I'm really just focusing on what I believe is best for Candace. Comparing myself to Candace. I was afraid of myself in third person, so excuse me.
That's what rich people do.
Yes, she does.
You might be rich.
Yep.
Let me borrow something.
Oh, my gosh.
Let me borrow a little bit.
Wow.
Just $1. Let me borrow $1.
Wow. This conversation took a turn. No, but I just focus on Candace. I'm my own competition. So, like, when I know I should be somewhere and I ain't there, I'm like, damn, kids, you get your life together. And I remind myself, like, sometimes I'll be like, excuse my language, but I'll be like, Candace, you're a badass. You're amazing. You are, like, whatever. So I always encourage myself, because sometimes we get so much into, like, the rough stuff that we think a lot of things, and we need to stop thinking and we need to start talking to ourselves.
Right.
Like, motivation.
These affirmations are huge, and you need to remind yourself on these affirmations and whatever else you need to do. So, like, I have affirmations on my phone. I have these things that remind myself. So it's not like this cute picture. It's literally my notes of, like, things I need to remind myself. So I always stay focused on the goal.
Stay focused on a goal. That's so powerful. Stay focused on your goal. So the way I love to wrap up is, I want you to give advice to somebody who is struggling right now, right? They don't know what's next. They don't know how to get through to that next step. What advice would you give them to make it to that next level?
First generation to be a preference.
So for somebody who is struggling to get to the next level and they're struggling, I would tell them, honestly, they need to find a good mentor in that field. They need to read. They need to listen to podcasts. And don't listen to things that just sound fun. Listen to the things that's going to help grow you and get to your next level. And then a lot of us, we put ourselves in a box. Step outside of the box. Get into these uncomfortable environments, because in those uncomfortable places where you learn you and you realize the places that you need to grow in.
Right.
It took somebody putting me in these places. I was like, y'all got me messed up, right? But in those same uncomfortable places were the same places I had to always be in. Like, I have to remind myself, Candace, you are great. Because I don't normally wake up in the morning thinking I'm great. I don't think I have this great speaking ability. I don't think that I have the ability to educate. I don't think these things. People think I do. People tell me all the time these different things. But if you knew Candace, you know I don't think like this at all. Like, I think I'm just an average person walking through life in an average aspect, right? And I'm just trying to get my family from no longer being immigrants to feeling like they're part of this American culture. But every day I just feel like an immigrant, and I don't deserve to be here. And so the reality is I always put myself in these places, and I'm always learning. I'm always educating. I'm always surrounding myself with people. I'm not just sticking around with the same group. I'm putting myself in places where people are like, they're doing things differently, and I'm a little like, y'all are weird. But I'm like, okay, this is good. Okay, this is what you do. Now how do I put myself together to put these things together? And so for those people who are struggling, don't give up. Don't let your head tell you a lot of these, you're not good enough, whatever. Make sure those affirmations empower you to keep pushing forward, and then focusing on those goals and all the distractions, get rid of them.
Discipline.
Get rid of them. I promise you, when you have this discipline and this proper schedule, don't change it. Work at it. Literally work at it for 21 days, and that will be your new habit. And when that becomes your new habit, I promise you, you'll see yourself grow more than you'll ever believe.
You're talking about you're not a public speaker, man. You are spitting gems, man. Gems, straight gems.
Oh, my goodness.
And one thing that you said, how, like, you don't see yourself as that person. I was listening to T.D. Jakes today, and he actually touched on that exact thing. He was saying when you're that person, it's kind of like the curse of somebody gifted, right? You can see everything around you. You can see that picture. You can see the walls. You can see Candace. You can see Dorothy. But the thing you can't see is yourself.
Yep.
You can't see yourself doing these things. So you just really have to sit with yourself and understand, like you said, I'm a badass.
Yes, I literally tell myself, I'm like, Candace, you a badass girl. Get your life. You know what I mean? And that's it. It's a period. It's not no comma or it's a period.
It's a period.
Done.
Just like that. And I want to thank you for speaking up.
Yeah, of course.
And it was amazing. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And just like that, we're gone.
We out.
Getting it right in the middle of the ghetto on the curb with a spike. All of the bookish, we on our back staring at the stars above.